So I'm going to start off with just a very basic question, Beauty on, and I know that we've talked tremendously about this in public, in private, and I think we mentioned it a little bit last time you came on Simply Bitcoin Live. Um, but it's just, is Bitcoin winning inevitable in your eyes?
Yes, it is. I think it is inevitable in the same way that email as a system of moving messages around was inevitable. It has first mover advantage. It has a tremendous amount of momentum. And if the state would get out of the way, the acceleration towards total domination of Bitcoin would be coming much faster. But it is going to happen without a shadow of doubt.
Awesome. So you mentioned something, right, which was the state getting out of the way. Clearly, Bitcoin is a threat to the state's root of power, right, which is having the ability, the power and privilege to create money for free that the rest of us serfs and peasants have to work for, basically. And we know that their last gasp, right, their last gasp at maintaining that privilege is, the central bank digital currencies. So
Well, first of all, the that's not, strictly speaking, that's not true. The root of the power of the state is the monopoly on violence. That's the root power. It doesn't really matter if the money is Bitcoin or not. They have a monopoly on violence, and they can force you to pay 100% of your earnings in Bitcoin to them. So the power to print money is not their power. It's the ability to execute violence against people. So whether Bitcoin is the money or not, they will retain this power. What it will do is put a constraint on their spending if everyone refuses to use their funny money. That's the true power of Bitcoin. It doesn't solve the problem of the power of the state and their monopoly on violence.
is that problem even solvable, or is that problem not necessarily a problem? It's just that right now the incentives are, perhaps you can make an argument, are misaligned because the state has a monopoly on the issuance of money, right? And that kind of misaligns the incentives between the citizens and the state, right? So do you
Well,
believe that if it go ahead?
Well, what it does is it gives the state the ability to pay an almost unlimited number of troops to go out and steal money from people. Troops, mechanisms like those 86,000 IRS agents, they wouldn't be able to pay for that kind of thing if they had only Bitcoin as the money, because it'll put a constraint on the amount of people they can put into the field to harass people. Now, it doesn't mean that they won't be able to collect taxes, but what it will do is it will make them pay attention to things like the Laffer curve, where if the rate of taxation is set correctly, no one will object to paying taxes. And in fact, the amount of revenue that the state makes goes up. So this is a proven fact. So this won't necessarily destroy the state or completely um, stop it from being able to harass people. What it will do is it'll make them be reasonable. It'll persuade them to be reasonable. And in fact, it'll be better for them because they will gain more revenues. They'll attract more revenues because won't be bothered to try and quote unquote cheat, even though they're not cheating.
Yeah, and this is actually a really interesting topic, right? The Do you think that it was a coincidence that when the central bank of the United States was introduced, right, in 1913, was also the same year that they introduced the federal income tax? Do you think that's a coincidence? And what are your thoughts about this progressive tax system that we have today? Because I fundamentally agree with you. It's almost as if the most successful and productive people in society are being punished for their productivity.
I don't think punished is the correct word. They're having more of their money stolen from them. And whether or not it was a coincidence or not, it's highly unlikely that it was a coincidence. These things cannot be a coincidence. The left hand knows what the right hand is doing and when we gets to that level. And so those two things were probably cooked up at the same time, and that's why they emerged at the same time. The system is fundamentally corrupt. I think it was Andrew Jackson's last words were, "I killed the bank." So fundamental a problem that this is, and so terribly important that it was his last word. So, in absentia of anybody other than Ron Paul who sees it as a problem, some other system that doesn't need to be explained to the people needs to be put in place that will cause the effect of the fiat dollar being destroyed by dint of its existence. And this is exactly what Bitcoin was designed to do. And what it does is harnesses people's need for efficiency and transparency and ease of use and all that business. And then the side effect is the elimination of fiat, because the vast majority of people, even the ones that claim to be educated, don't know about the nature of money. And in fact, many of the Bitcoiners you read about today didn't know that there wasn't even a problem with the money until Bitcoin came along and showed them that there was a problem with it. And then they learned about the Austrian school, which they'd never heard of. And then all of a sudden, the fundamental underpinning of their ideas about money was removed, and they became hardcore Bitcoiners because they've been lied to, and nobody likes to be lied to. So that's the true. Well, that's my opinion about what happened with the introduction of the Federal Reserve and the federal income tax, that it happened at the same time by design with the small cabal of people who effectively run everything.